South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem on Wednesday reaffirmed her decision not to run for president in 2024, saying no Republican can win the nomination over former President Trump. The fact is, none of them can win as long as Trump's in the race, and that's just the facts. So why run if you can't win? Noem said in an interview on Fox News' Fox and Friends. I've probably run 10 statewide races. I've won them all. I've never lost. If I get into a race, I'm going to win. So that's just how we do it. And President Trump did some great things for our state and for our country. As governor, and everybody should be grateful for this, he let me do my job. When he was president, he let me do my job, and I appreciate that. Noem continued. Biden doesn't do that. Noem nodded to the crowded GOP presidential primary and, referring to Republican governors, said jokingly that it seems almost all of them are running for president. Noem continued to praise Trump, who holds a commanding lead over his 2024 primary opponents, and hinted that she might endorse him when he visits South Dakota early next month. Asked whether she will make an endorsement, Noem first talked about the excitement in South Dakota ahead of his rally, noting that tickets for the event sold out within the first day. He is inspirational. People always show up to hear something interesting, Noem said. And yeah, you'll hear something from me too. On whether she would accept the vice presidential spot if Trump tapped her as his running mate, she said, he hasn't asked me, so we'll cross that bridge. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I don't really answer hypotheticals. He's going to need somebody that's a good partner that's willing to fix this country, and it's not going to be pretty. So we've got a lot to do, Noem added. So Noem is someone who I've really had a lot of problems with since she became governor. When she was a congresswoman, I didn't really pay much attention to her. But I have to say, her answer here is worthy of several discussions, because I think a lot of times when you talk about this stuff, people don't really sit back and kind of think about it. They just kind of blurt out something and that's it. Where she says, none of them can win as long as Trump's in the race, and that's just the facts. I'm inclined to agree, and I'm the same person who, during the 3-year period between when Trump lost to Biden and when his, we had the 2022 midterms, I really thought that he was going to either not run again, because it was generally accepted that when a one-term president gets defeated, they don't try to run for a non-consecutive second term. That's why it's only ever worked once for Grover Cleveland. And it really seemed after his candidates lost in 2022 that Republicans, or at least general election, and I guess just the general voter base across the U.S., was sick of him. But he got in, and he was surging in all of these different polls, sometimes 30, 40, 50 points ahead of the rest of the field. So I think anyone who's looking, even if you like some of the other candidates, which I can't say I do, but even if you're a fan of these other people, whether you're into Haley or DeSantis or any of the rest of them, I can't see where in a field where we're month after month, we're getting closer and closer to the first voting states. At the start of next year, we have this debate coming up, which might shake something up, but I can't see how any person who's looking at this objectively can say that Trump is not the odds-on favorite to win the nomination. And it is a very realistic scenario. It doesn't mean it's going to happen, but it could happen. It is very realistic that not only is he going to win the nomination, he's possibly going to win every single damn state across the country in the primary. And I'm not saying that as some fan of his, as someone who's so enthusiastic for him to get another term. It's just like, his former Attorney General Bill Barr said if he gets reelected, it'll be a horror show. But I can't look at data that shows him with such a commanding lead and say, oh yeah, DeSantis, he's going to make his comeback next month, and this other person's going to... I'm not going to delude myself. I'm trying to be as objective as I can, and her response here is right, that it's just facts that these other candidates are not cutting it. But where she says, if I get into the race, I'm going to win, like she's basically saying, I'm someone who's never lost a race, which is true. Even though I would say that if you're a Republican and you run in a red state, or a Democrat and you run in a blue state, you're probably almost likely to never lose a race because there's not a big ideological gap. But regardless of that, she's right that she's never lost a race. And I can see where she's trying to spin it as, oh, I only enter races that I think I can win, and I don't think I can beat Trump, and why bother? But what I actually believe, because she didn't answer if she would accept being picked for VP, even though she starts talking about, we're going to need to fix the country, and Biden won't let me be governor. Trump loves loyalty. He loves people that stand by him, that he doesn't think are going to cross him. This is why his former Vice President Pence, for years, defended everything Trump did, and when he did the most basic of decent acts, which was not try to overturn the results of the election, he became a pariah. He became despised, hated. But if you look at Trump's victory in 2016, and really if you look at that race, because a lot of people have like fuzzy memories about stuff from 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, there were talks of Cruz being Trump's running mate, or Carson, because they were the only two that out of that, like the bigger candidates weren't really picking at him and insulting up until roughly the voting started to take place around Iowa. And Trump ended up out of a field of of over a dozen candidates. He didn't pick a single one for his VP. He picked the governor of Indiana, who wasn't even probably ever going to run for president, at least in the near future, if he wasn't picked for Trump's running mate. So I think Noem is doing a calculated thing where she's figuring, maybe if I ran for president, I could probably get about 1 million votes, maybe a few 100,000, but I don't think I can brave the storm. And Republican voters clearly are not the biggest fans of women. I mean, look at how Haley is doing, and then you go back and further in time and look at Fiorina and Bachmann and all these other women that were, they got hyped up for like 5 seconds, but then when there was actually time to vote, pretty much no one actually supported them. So she's figuring likely that the only thing she can do, the best position for her is to stay as governor of South Dakota, and endorse Trump after he does his rally, or sometime before the voting takes place, so it doesn't look like she's hopping on a bandwagon, and stay in his good graces, then get picked to be his running mate, maybe, because he has other people like Kerry Lake, who he'd have to be really stupid to pick Lake over Noem. But anyways, so she's trying to stay as governor, trying to stay in his good graces, and then if she gets picked as his running mate, whether the ticket lose or not, and I think I've said before, I think Trump is more likely to lose against Biden than Biden is to lose against Trump, just the way things currently are, because a lot of independents are sick of Trump. But I think if Noem gets picked as the running mate, whether that ticket wins or not, she is going to end up, by virtue of being associated with Trump, be the odds-on favorite for the Republican nomination in 2028. That's my prediction. That's what it looks like to me. And I think she knows she's better off just staying as governor of a little small state that isn't really getting popped up in the news too much than launching some presidential campaign in a very crowded field. It's just like Larry Hogan said, the multi-car pileup. But the other part of this I wanted to discuss is the quote that was actually used by The Hill for this article: "Why run if you can't win?" Because I've never really seen people, I've seen it in a few comment sections, but I've never really seen people talk about, why do so many people run for president, right? Like, why do we get these crowded fields of sometimes 10 people, sometimes 15 people, hell, sometimes 20 people, if they know that most of them have no shot, or they're like polling at 1% or 2% or whatever? Why do we keep seeing that? Well, running for office, or I guess I should call it national office, because state, really any office, tends to increase the person's name recognition. When somebody is a commentator, yeah, you see him, on YouTube, whatever, but there are a lot of people in the real world who don't watch TV, or they don't watch the news with any regularity, or they don't watch anything online. So when you have to get up and leave the comfort of that studio, or wherever other place you may live in, or other job you may have that doesn't ever get any real attention from the news, and you have to go up to people's face and say, hey, I'm running for president, or I'm running for governor or senator or congressman, there's a lot of people who otherwise would have never met you that will start to go, hey, now I know who this person is. And I've also said before, a lot of these people, besides doing it for name recognition, they know that in the event that they lose, they can then forward it into some other type of career. So for example, um, if Haley loses, which I'm going to say that she is, you are guaranteed to either see her as a part-time or recurring contributor on some news show, or put out some memoir about the run that she had. You're not, that's not going to be the last you see of her. And really, it's just interesting how running for president for like what almost seems to be most of the people that do it nowadays is not about actually trying to become president. It's just to get your name out there or some other external goal. If you look at Jesse Jackson's 84 and 88 presidential campaigns, a lot of people speculate he wasn't running to win, but rather to increase black voter registration. And, you know, obviously there's the part about like getting your message out there, because he was someone who was for single payer. And same thing with Sanders. When he ran against Hillary in 2016, a lot of people said he has no chance of winning, so why bother? But because of his first run and also his second one, but not as much, he was able to get many of his ideas out in the public, whether we're talking about free college or ending the war, just different things that you didn't see discussed by many of the other candidates that were around. So, in short, running for president is something that what seems to be by most people that do it is not just for the purpose of winning the office. It's to get your to increase your name recognition, open up more opportunities for you, and sometimes even just to set up another campaign. Like, for all we know, DeSantis could lose this time around, which I think he will, and then come back in 2028 and be the front runner. Because I don't think, I think if Trump loses this time, he's not going to run again. Like, I don't see him launching a fifth presidential campaign, but who knows? Maybe he will. But if he did, it wouldn't be for name recognition. And a lot of people, actually, if you want to spin this back to Trump, are saying that the reason he's running now is to avoid facing legal repercussions for related to the Alvin Bragg and the rest of the stuff with his I'm not really the biggest person who likes to report on the investigations, because they just kind of annoy me. And there's plenty of other channels discussing that stuff ad nauseum. But one theory is that he's running to stay out of legal trouble. Like, hey, if I become president, I can pardon myself. Or if one of the other Republican candidates wins and wants to be nice to him, they can do the same thing. So in short, her response is interesting because it's someone who I'm 90% sure probably does want to be president, President Noem, but she doesn't think she can beat Trump, which she's not wrong for thinking that. And she also believes that the best way to forward her presidential aspirations is to wait her turn and possibly get propped up by Trump as his running mates. And then if they lose, or he loses, or serves out another term, she can then be the odds-on favorite to get the Republican nomination in 2028 or 32. And from that point onward, you really just have this person who kind of, she responds back in this really funny way. Why would you run if you can't win? And I just answered it because people who run like to increase their name recognition so they can run successfully later in the future, or open up some deal in the entertainment industry, whether it's putting out a book or being on some talk show or some other venture. I mean, look at Bob Dole. He lost in '96 and he became a political celebrity. He was appearing on all types of shows and various commentator forms and writing books. So, it's there is basically a second life if you run for president and lose. And a lot of these people are really, like, from the moment they launch their campaigns, they know they have no chance, but they see that green lining up for them in the event that they're able to, get somewhere with the race and see what they can do afterward. It's not about benefiting the country. It's about enriching yourself and just getting that next job.